Hi, my name is Riley Allen. This is my review of Chapter 2 of The Hunger Games, which is just titled Chapter 2. So in the last chapter, we left off with Prim getting reaped for the Hunger Games, and this chapter picks off exactly where it was left off. And Katniss was numb, and Katniss is numb, we literally learn that the name Tribute is synonymous with the word corpse, meaning if you're reaped, you're gonna die. So she, witnessing her 12-year-old sister reaped, is just numb. She later mentions that the odds aren't, goes through the fact that she did all she could. She made sure that Prim took out no tesserae. Her name was only in there once out of 1,000, but the odds were not in her favor. But eventually, when she passed Katniss, Prim passed Katniss on the way to the stand with Effie, she noticed the little ducktail of her shirt untucked. And that snapped her out of it, and she proceeded to volunteer as tribute. And this chapter, we kind of get a sense of Katniss's self-worth, of what she thinks she's worth, and her deprecating feelings about herself, and her lack of trust for others. She mentions that to the credit of the district, nobody clapped when Effie asked them to. And then she says she doesn't know why. They might have, it might be for Prim, it might be because they remember her father, it might be because they trade with her in the Hob. And then they do an old district salute, which is usually done at funerals, where they raise their fingers to kiss their fingers to their lips and raise their hand up. And she can't understand why they're doing that for her. I think she says, I volunteered, now I'm someone important. It's just like, I kind of feel like the district has a lot more respect for her than she thinks, considering she's one of only 2 people to venture beyond the border of District 12 and hunt, meaning she's the one bringing some of the freshest meat. I mean, it's mentioned that there's pigs, goats, and whatnot kept around, but she's bringing deer, squirrels. I don't know what other things I think she mentioned she brought a lynx, maybe, once. I don't know what she brings, but she definitely brings turkeys. And then she goes on to mention that starvation is something that's common. So a woman or a girl who brings food regularly, fresh food regularly, and is always willing to trade for it, would probably be seen more favorably by the district. Then the boy is called, and it's Peeta Mellark, and she notes that he has an older brother or 2. One's probably old enough to age the reaping, but the other chose not to volunteer, because that's just not what it's done. And she mentions that Katniss is that outlier. Also, it is mentioned that Katniss is the first volunteer in decades. I think in the movies it mentioned she's the first ever volunteer. And now I need to know who the hell from District 12 decided they had a shot. Or was this some weird suicide by Hunger Games? Well, I was just gonna go to the hanging tree, but that kid looks pitiful. I'll just take his place. It won't be a quick one, but I'll get there eventually. Well, I don't know. Anyway, I kind of also do see why no older siblings would volunteer for the younger ones, because let's think about this. Katniss's mother is not all there. She's still in her grief. While Katniss is the main provider. She brings the food. Now, technically, Prim could survive. I'm sure Gale would help her out, but she'd just be yet another mouth to feed for the Hawthorns. So, theoretically, she would be... If Katniss dies in the arena, she'd probably be far worse off than if she was in the arena, I suppose. Because she'd just be back to square one. She'd eventually have to take out Tesserae. She'd eventually have to, just... It'd be back to square one, basically. And worse off, because Katniss at least kept them mostly fed. That was somewhat of a surety. That surety's taken away. And that's just Katniss' family. Think about the other families that don't have this girl who can shoot bow and arrows. Who probably only survive coin to coin from their job, paycheck to paycheck. I'd understand if they look at the younger sibling and think, especially if they got other younger siblings, can't risk it, not worth it. And then the rest of this chapter is basically talking about how she has a relationship with Peeta in the not so conventional sense of they're friends, but we get the exposition that when her father was killed in the mine and her mother checked out in grief, Katniss became the sole provider, but she wasn't the Katniss that is now. She wasn't the Katniss hardened by her troubles. She was a scared 11-year-old girl, and she was too scared to trade in the Hob. She was too scared to venture beyond the woods. So she went in the town and tried to trade some of Prim's baby clothes, but she couldn't. And eventually the starvation got too much for her, and she tried to steal from the trash can despite knowing all thievery is punishable by death. Which I guess is, better than noose than the slow starvation. Eventually she passes out, basically. She just calls it kind of quits at the end of the bakery, at the backside of the bakery, smelling the bread, which is... And then we get some of her suicidal thoughts, I suppose. They could be qualified as that. But at this point, I don't blame her. She's basically knocking on death's door anyways. And then she hears a commotion. And it's the woman, the baker, chasing her off and saying awful things. And then she hears another commotion, and it's the baker's son, Peeta, coming out with a red welt on his face after getting struck by his mother, implied to be struck by his mother for burning the bread. Dude loves bread. He tears off a few chunks of the burnt bread and throws it to the pigs, but once his mother's not looking, he throws it to Katniss. And Katniss makes mention that it was... could have been he could have did it on purpose, but she dismisses it because she couldn't understand why someone would do it. Which kind of shows Katniss's thoughts on people. She can't understand the thought of doing something for someone without expecting to be owed or just doing it to do it. Now, to be fair, we do later learn that Peeta has a crush on Katniss, so that was probably the reason he did it. I don't know if it was any other person standing out there, if Peeta would have done it, but I do think he might have. I don't know. It's been a while since I've read the books, and all I know is, about the star-crossed lovers thing. So I can't really get a sense of Peeta's character just off the top of my head. He might have thrown the bread to someone if it wasn't Katniss, or he might not have, but Katniss is kind of right in the sense that he did have an ulterior motive in this case, and it was, his crush on her. But he didn't do it expecting anything because he didn't even approach her. Now, this is kind of like one of those things where, they were both chicken shit. He could have approached her And she could have approached him and thanked him, but they didn't. And I think she noticed PETA standing in a field of dandelions, and it made her remember her father's lessons in the woods. And she realized that she could survive. I also liked that Katniss made a point of not crying because she didn't want them to she basically didn't want them to see her as weak, which I kind of think is like, I guess, but I personally don't think most people would see her as weak for crying at this point, because she later says that Prim is her sister. And she is volunteering for something that could be her death. But I guess I could understand why she thinks the Capitol wouldn't like it. But it's also kind of like one of those things where you don't want to, she says she doesn't want to give them the satisfaction, which is like, yeah. Which is kind of what I would do. I kind of agree with. They're gonna kill her. If they're gonna kill me, I'm not gonna cry about it. I'm not gonna give them that satisfaction to show them that they've won anymore. Also, she mentions that her name is Katniss Everdeen, and when Effie asks, "Oh, you must be," I bet my buttons that was your little sister. We can't have her having all the glory. Ooh, I don't like Effie. She just, I don't like that. And then we have Haymitch coming in drunkenly after the districts do their salute, throwing his arm around Katniss, drunkenly slurring that to the camera that she's got a lot of spunk, more than you, pointing at the camera. And I wonder if this is Haymitch in his drunken way, noticing that Katniss was about to break, about to cry, and wanting to help her save face. Like, in his own drunken, misguided way, like, he thought he was helping her, which he did. It got the camera off her. She managed to pull herself together, dry the tears. So he did help, but I wonder if that was the intention, or if that was just, a drunk dude being a drunk. Could be either thing. And the chapter ends with, Katniss wishing she'd have thanked PETA, and now that they won't get the chance, because when is she supposed to thank him? Why is she slitting his throat? She thinks that would be a bad time. And she says there's going to be 22 other people in that arena. Odds are I won't have to kill them. But she says, but the odds have not been good as of late. So the first two chapters are just basically exposition dumping after exposition dumping, while slowly trickling the plot along. Overall, I really love this. I really loved getting inside the head of Katniss more. So I feel like we kind of learned a lot in Katniss's head about her thoughts on people, the world, and herself. She doesn't think that highly of a lot of people in general. But to be fair, she doesn't think that highly of herself. So, I guess it tracks. I also loved the story about PETA giving her the bread. Haymitch is funny in a very sad alcoholic type of way. It's just like funny as a character, but Haymitch as a man, real person, would be a very sad sight type of thing. It's just, yeah. I don't like Effie. I do like Gale. I do love that when Katniss volunteered for Prim wouldn't let go until Gale dragged her away. Which kind of put a little bit of a target on his back, because the boys have not been reaped yet. So he had to go out of the way and then drag her back to Prim's mother, Prim back to her mother, and then go back. Like, I'm surprised the Peacekeepers allowed it, but maybe the Peacekeepers were like so damn shocked that somebody from bumfuck District 12 was volunteering for tribute that they were just like, holy shit, what do we do? Like, even the mayor and Effie were like, shit, there's a volunteer? What the hell's what's the protocol? Overall, I'm going to give this chapter a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching the video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.